The failure of the January 1966 military coup, led by Major Kaduna Nzogu, who was only Igbo in name, having been born and raised in Kaduna to parents from the present-day Delta State, resulted in the death of prominent Nigerian leaders and the finest of Nigerian Army foreign trained officers. The coup, which was wrongly labeled an Igbo coup, even though soldiers of other ethnic extractions were involved. According to the plotters, it was aimed at saving the country from the men at the helm of affairs, who were running the country aground with their corrupt ways, living flamboyant lifestyles and looting public funds at the expense of ordinary citizens. In later years, one of the plotters, Adewale Ademu Yega, would go on to deny that ethnic sentiments was the reason for the coup in his book, Why We Struck. There was no decision at our meeting to single out any ethnic group for elimination. Our intentions were honorable, our views were national, and our goals were idealistic. Even those earmarked for arrest, 4 were Northerners, 2 were Westerners, and 2 were Easterners, he wrote. The coup began with an inner circle of university-educated young officers who intended a national military revolution by seizing power in the regional capitals of Kaduna, Northern Region, Ibadan, Western Region, Enugu, Eastern Region, and later taking control of Lagos, the Federal Territory. While they failed in the capital city, they succeeded in Kaduna and Ibadan, and there was barely any activity in the Eastern Region. The success of Nzogu murdering prominent Nigerians like Tafawa Balewa, the then Prime Minister, Brigadier Zakaria Mai Malari, and Ahmadu Bello, the Premier of Northern Nigeria, resulted in what is known as the counter-coup of July 1966, also known as the July Remarch. Northern soldiers had a list of grievances following the aborted January 1966 coup. There were rumors of a retaliatory coup because of the pressure from Northern Nigeria, which eventually led to the planning and execution of the counter-coup. On July 29, 1966, Agui Ironsi spent the night at the government house in Ibadan as part of a nationwide tour. His host, Lieutenant Colonel Adekunle Fajuyi, military governor of Western Nigeria, alerted him to a possible mutiny within the army. Agui Ironsi desperately tried to contact his army chief of staff, Yakubu Gowon, but he was unreachable. In the early hours of the morning, the government house Ibadan was surrounded. Agui Ironsi and Fajuyi were adopted by a hostile troop. After the head of state Agui Ironsi and Lieutenant Colonel Adekunle Fajuyi were adopted by rampaging soldiers in the early hours of July 29, 1966 in Ibadan and taken away, the country was literally without a government for 3 days. Between July 29th and 31st, when their whereabouts were unaccounted for, an atmosphere of uncertainty enveloped the country. When their bodies were later found, Brigadier Babafemi Ogundipe, the most senior military officer at the time, made a broadcast calling for public cooperation to restore law and order. He also sent Lieutenant Colonel Yakubu Gowon to appeal to a group of northern officers who were spoiling for a fight and considering secession. Behind the scenes, negotiations involving top civil servants, including the chairman of the Federal Public Service Commission and the head of the Northern Nigerian Civil Service, and the Chief Justice, as well as foreign diplomats, including the British High Commissioner and the American Ambassador, eventually led to a compromise. On August 1, 1966, Lieutenant Colonel Yakubu Gowon emerged as the new head of state and commander-in-chief of the armed forces, chosen by most of the Supreme Military Council members.